Please welcome Charles Scott to the Packer and Durham program. First of all, thank you for the time. It's great to have you with us. And Mark and I are excited to see you and hope you're well. Charles?
I'm doing fine, and I'm glad to be on the show. And I watched it last night. I thought you did a great job with Coach Smith.
Well, and let's start there. I said when the documentary came out, and we had a chance to see some of the early episodes of it, that one of the things that I hope was going to be accomplished is if you were in your 30s and you're a fan of ACC basketball and you think you know a lot about ACC basketball, you're getting ready to learn a whole lot, because from when the league was founded to certainly through your era into the television age of the 1970s, a lot of really important basketball happened. You're a big part of that. Do you feel like in some ways the documentary is introducing younger fans to the golden age of ACC basketball, or a critical age of ACC basketball?
Well, I think it's more a critical age of ACC basketball because, and in watching the documentary, as I saw and most other people saw, the ACC started out, it really started out as an all-white conference. So I think the integration of blacks into the conference really changed the dynamics of the conference. And as you said in the documentary, the ACC started out in football and ended up being a great basketball conference. And I think that, of course, the black athletes that played in the conference, not only me, but Phil Ford, Bill Chamberlain, David Thompson, Minnie Lynn Elmore, all the players that played, I have made a great contribution to the ACC and made the ACC what it is today.
Charles, no one will ever be able to figure out what it feels like to walk in somebody else's shoes. The pressure to play in the ACC is one thing, but given where we were from a societal standpoint, how tough was it mentally for you in terms of the game's one thing, especially when you went on the road, but the mental toughness to get through it, to still concentrate on the game, but yet have to put up with all the nonsense. How difficult is it? How do you describe that to somebody?
Well, I mean, it's hard to describe because you have to be in the situation, to deal with it. Luckily, and to be honest with you, I had a great support staff in my teammates, Larry Miller, Dick Grubar, Joe Brown, Joe Tuttle, Bill Bunny. All my teammates, they always had my back, and that made me feel capable of being able to respond to the circumstance I was dealing with. And it was very tough. It was very lonely. Put it that way. It was very lonely because every game I played, there was really only one thing I wanted to do, and that was not mess up, not bring down what was already established as a great North Carolina team. As you know, I came the year after they won their ACC tournament, went to their first Eastern Regional with Coach Smith, and went all the way to the finals, but didn't get to the final game. And so coming back the next year, of course, everyone expected North Carolina to get to the same spot. The only difference was they only changed one player on that team. Bobby Lewis graduated, and I became a starter for the University of North Carolina. So everything that was done at that time was going to be a microcosm of how I fit in with the rest of the players. How did I mix with a team that went to the NCAA finals the year before? And it was a lot of pressure. Like I said, every game that I played was never a game of enjoyment. It was a game of relief when it was over.
Well, if it was a game of relief, you knew how to get relief then, because you hit a ton of big shots. You had 40 points in an ACC tournament final. The scoring records, the leadership levels, the records kind of bear it out from a team perspective. You have great affinity for Coach Smith. We all have great affinity for Coach Smith. But the relationship, and I said this years ago when my dad was still alive, that I think the relationship you and Coach Smith had was precedent setting to understanding where society was. Is there any way to kind of qualify or quantify what he meant to you in terms of coming to Chapel Hill and ultimately being as successful as you were as a basketball player and a student?
Well, I mean, to be honest, see, people don't know my backstory. I came from a broken family. I mean, my father died when I was 14, and he died from cirrhosis of the liver because he was an alcoholic. My mother and father had separated when I was 11, and I lived with my father at that time. So I really didn't have a family background. I did not have a family background to try to understand a life. Coach Smith, but I got to start really back at Laurinburg Institute with Mr. and Mrs. McDuffie. They
Mm.
were the first people that really showed interest in making me a person that could be successful in society. I mean, before I went to Laurinburg, I really had no concept of what I wanted to be or what I wanted to do in life. Laurinburg was the first place that gave me an introduction to how to be a person that would make a contribution to society. And North Carolina gave me a circumstance where I could make a critical contribution. I mean, those things, it was during the civil rights era. Any
Hmm.
black that had an opportunity to make a contribution to civil rights really had the responsibility to try to do that. I was fortunate enough to be in a circumstance where I could make a contribution, and I understood the importance of that through the school that I went to, Laurinburg Institute, which was an all-black school in the South, and the founder of the school, Mr. McDuffie, whose father founded the school and whose father also was a protege of Booker T. Washington. These things weighed on the circumstances of what I was uh, capable of doing and what I had the opportunity to do to make things better. And I think at that time, any black who had the opportunity to do things in that capacity would have taken on the same responsibility.
I tell you what, the groundwork for the story is phenomenal. I mean, the McDuffies at Laurinburg Institute, the leadership there at a time when that was unique, Mark.
Well, here's the other thing too, and this is a great history lesson and one that we can, I think, incorporate today, and that is there is strength and courage to
Yeah.
go against the grain, right? And
And
just say, hey, you do the right thing for people. Period. End of story. And I
yeah.
thought Dean Smith had a sense of that, and obviously Mr. Scott here lived it.
Yeah, and Charles, when you then get to Chapel Hill after the experience at Laurinburg, what does you talked about your relationship with your teammates and then playing basketball, obviously, and the success you had there. Now we're introducing this story over the last 10, 15, 20 years to a brand new generation of fans. What's the message, do you think, in terms of the experience and the takeaway for what people, young people especially today, can embrace of your journey?
Well, I mean, I think that first of all, it shows how sports are so important to the integration of life itself. I mean, I think some of my teammates, Rusty Clark, I think, and Bill Bunning and Joe Brown, a lot of these guys had never before interacted with a black person. And,
Mm.
and, and it wasn't because they were biased or because they were prejudiced. It's just because they lived in the South and there was no circumstance where they were uh, really combining or playing against each other or really having the opportunity to, converse with a black person. I mean, the South was just not in that particular time period where that was being done. I
Mm.
was the first black that a lot of the players on the team had an opportunity to really understand and really see that there was really no difference in
Mm.
personality, character, or circumstance between us. And I think uh, that permeated throughout the team, and really the players really grew as I grew in understanding society during that time.
Charles, watching these documentaries, which have been phenomenal, right? I mean, they've just been great for especially all of us junkies that just love the game and how it all came about.
Mm.
Has there been something through the first 3 or 4 episodes that you have watched that you went, man, I did not know that? Anything
Yeah,
surprise you?
okay. I mean, first of all, I knew about every case, but I mean, I did. I mean, I knew he had started the ACC. I knew that, but I didn't know. First of all, that he was an Indiana guy, and the fact that he brought, and now it gave me a clearer understanding of how he was able to just be so craze about basketball, really in the South, where football was king all the time. So knowing about that really brought me some new knowledge about the history of the ACC. But one thing that I really found really fascinating was the fact that two of the coaches that played for Everett Case, Vic Bubis, recruited me for Duke, and Norman Sloan recruited me for North Carolina State, and I found out they both played on Everett Case's team. And then the funny backstory was where Norman Sloan thought he should play before Big Bubis. I thought that was, I found that to be very facetious. I found that, and then found out they had to coach against each other in the years, coming up. That was a very tantalizing story. I really enjoyed it.
You know what? Thank goodness you and Dean Smith hooked up, because had Billy Packer hooked you into Wake Forest, I mean, who knows how history would have been written, right?
Billy recruited me. Billy Packer recruited me for Wake Forest, and if it was, the honest to God truth was that my high school coach, who was also the principal of the school, understood the significance of being the first black at the University of North Carolina. And he, more than I, pushed me in that direction. To be honest with you, the first couple of times I visited North Carolina, I really didn't want to go there to school. I still was set on, Lefty Driesell was always my favorite person in life, and he still is one of my favorite people in life. And the opportunity I was going to have to play for Lefty was something that I just found to be just exhilarating. And it took a lot for me to change my mind to not want to go to Davidson. And it really was, I really ended up with the best choice. But my high school coach was the one that I wanted to sign a letter of intent early in when I first committed to Davidson, but my high school coach would not allow me to sign a letter of intent. And there's a real funny backstory behind it, because he told me that he did not want me to sign a letter of intent to any school, because he wanted me to visit a lot of schools and really get to see if that's where I really wanted to go, was Davidson. So anytime I would visit a school, I always had it out when they asked me, well, did you like it here? I said, yeah, I love it here. But my high school coach, who at that time was also being my guardian, said, well, you can't sign with any school. And, I want you to, until April 15th, to that time period came. So when I visited North Carolina, and I went on a weekend that used to be called, I don't know if any of y'all remember, it used to be a weekend in Carolina called Jubilee Weekend. It was the week before finals. And they used to have, it was a big party weekend before finals. And I visited Carolina that weekend, and it just so happened that weekend they always had a show, and that weekend they had Smokey Robinson and the Miracles on Friday night and the Temptations on Saturday night. And I said, any school that got Smokey Robinson and the Miracles and the Temptations. So on the way driving, they drove me back to Laurinburg. Larry Brown and Coach Smith was driving me back to Laurinburg. And on the way driving back, Coach Smith and Larry and them say, well, how did you like it? I said, well, I had a great time. I really enjoyed it. They said, well, do you think you want to go here? And I said, well, I always had my out. I said, yeah, I think I really like Carolina now. I really would like to go. But my high school coach, who was my guardian at the time, told me that I couldn't sign any letters of intent because he wanted me to visit other schools. We got back to Laurinburg, and Larry got out the car, and Coach Mick got out the car, and they told Miss McDuffie, they said, well, Charles said he really wants to go here, but you said he couldn't sign any letter of intent until after April 15th, after he visited all the other schools. And to my astonishment, my high school coach said, nah, he can sign if he wants to go to Carolina. And so I was stuck at that time. Carolina. Really at that time, I thought I was making my out again where I wouldn't have to sign for any place. But I told him, I said, well, if he let me sign, I would sign, knowing that he wasn't going to let me sign. But I was fooled that time, and that's when I understood that was always the agenda behind him always making me. I mean, I must have visited Carolina about 8 or 9 times, and
Hmm.
I guess he made it so that he wanted me to understand that it was a great school, and he was absolutely correct, right about it. And that's really the sideshow of how I really got to Carolina rather than to Davidson.
That's
Charles, I want to close with this question. I mean, your journey is exclusive to you, just as you said earlier. I think that's a really important statement that no one really knows until they're in those shoes. But your impact on this game and your impact on this league in particular, because you came at a time, and then there was Charlie Davis at Wake Forest, Billy Jones at Maryland, Al Hartley, NC State, and others. Right? I don't want to lose sight on other guys that broke the barrier at those particular institutions. But not a conversation goes by in this league that it doesn't go Charles Scott, David Thompson, Michael Jordan, and on and on and on as to the guys who were the foundation of stars in this league. What does that mean to you today?
Well, I mean, it means a great deal, of course, to have been able to accomplish something that really is very historical in a league that is very prestigious as the ACC. I mean, of course, it's something that I look on with pride and feel very good about the accomplishment. I look back and I can feel good about what the University of North Carolina has become after that point in time, and to know that I had a hand in making it that way. But to be honest with you, um, I always give credit to Coach Smith. I mean, Coach Smith just was the person that uh, made me the individual that I am. I mean, I live my life still on accordance to how Coach Smith would feel about what kind of individual I am and what I'm doing. Uh, I, I can never say enough. I mean, I was able to do the things that I accomplished at the University of North Carolina because of the people that I were involved with, because of the people who were there as helping points to me, the Mrs. Lees, Mr. and Mrs. Lee, the Caldwells, uh, of course, Coach John Lotz, who was the
Right.
best man at my wedding. I mean, that's how much he meant to me, and Miss Woods and Miss Terrell. I mean, Carolina. I mean, and I know everybody we say this, and everybody gets upset when we say this, but Carolina is a family,
Right.
and it's a family that I'm glad to be to be a part of, and they gave me the opportunity to do something that I never even dreamed that I would have an opportunity to do in life, and that was to make a great contribution to integration. And I'm just thankful that I was able to accomplish those things in a manner that made others that came after me, excuse me, bad English, that came after me, able to feel comfortable and to accomplish much more than I accomplished. I mean, I take my hat off to the David Thompsons, the Michael Jordans, the Ralph Sampsons, the Phil Fords. I mean, James Worthy. I'm gonna name all the Carolina guys, of course, but, and the Charlie Davises
Yeah.
and I take my hat off to all those guys because uh, I mean, all of us had to go through certain things in order for the ACC to become what it is now,
Mm.
and each one of us made a contribution. I was just fortunate enough to be on a team that had great other players that helped me stand out more and helped me become more of the centerpiece of the integration of the ACC. But it was a lot of players that that were on that road with me, even though they did not like get the opportunity to do all the things that I did. But a lot of players paved the way for them, and I just like to say, Billy Jones, the other guys at State, Charlie Davis, Norwood Todman, Gil McGregor.
Mhm.
All these guys, Bill Chamberlain, all these guys came after me, but they were able to withstand. They kept the torch as high as I put it up there, and that's the most important thing about it.
Charles, I'll just tell you, it's a real honor
Yeah.
having you on the show, and I hope that folks are watching this documentary and understand what your road was like to pave it for everybody else, which has made the ACC so great. And if anything comes out of this documentary, I hope people understand it. You know what? Treating people with respect, doesn't matter your color, your skin. Everybody goes through highs and lows. Some hills are a little steeper than others. Got to figure that out. But, man, you were an incredible inspiration. And it's really, really cool having you on the show talking about it. Really, I appreciate that.
Well, thank you very much. I really enjoyed being on here. And again, and we got to always end this way, and I got to tell you this. My name is Charlie Scott, and I'm a Tar Heel.
There you go.